If you are holding XRP, you don't even need to sell it anymore at this point. I mean, you're going to send your XRPs to an exchange, you're going to turn that into your own currency, and that currency will go into your bank account, right? And that's what it's called off-ramp. But you don't even need to do it anymore. There's no need to sell your XRP because finance is on the blockchain. DeFi, decentralized finance. You don't even need to sell your XRPs because you can participate in finance in a decentralized way. And Flare does it again to make sure that you can do a lot of things just like you're doing in real life, but in a decentralized way on the blockchain. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you can lend and borrow on the blockchain without a middleman and without trusting a bank. You can actually become a bank by lending it and earning interest rates. And if you want, you can also borrow it. Here we go. I have my XRPs. I'll lock it up. I want stable coins and I can use it while my XRPs are locked up. And when I pay that back, I get my XRPs back. That is the future of finance. And I'm going to explain everything in this video, how this whole system works, which is very important to know, and what are the risks. What is going on, everybody? It's King Karan with another Flare slash XRP content for you guys. So first, let me show you a tweet from Flare. First modular lending for XRP is here. Morpho X Mystic Finance are now live, bringing permissionless, actively managed institutional grade vaults to the XRP Fi ecosystem. Institutional grade is a very important thing because the institutions are going to use this platform, which makes sure that this whole system is robust and waterproof. Because we all know these institutions, they're not going to use something if the risk is very high or if there are some things here and there, right? So this is actually really good. FXRP holders can now earn yield by obviously lending your XRPs, borrow stables without selling, build and loop advanced strategies. So I'm going to explain everything, how this system works. But first, I need to explain to you this whole collaboration. So you have Flare as the layer base, right? Then you have Morpho, that is actually the lending platform that is on top of Flare. And then you have Mystic Finance, that is the interface. That is actually the website that you need to go in order to lend and borrow. So you have Mystic Finance as the website, as the interface. Then you have Morpho as the lending protocol. And then below that, you have Flare, the base chain. So, guys, I'm not going to let you all wait any longer. I'm going straight to the whiteboard. But first, you guys need to know that what I'm going to explain on the whiteboard is actually a really good thing for everybody to know. Because before you lend, before you borrow, you need to know the mechanics behind this system. And once you know that, you are very well aware of the risks and of the things that is happening behind the scenes, right? Because it's just an interface. You just deposit your XRP, you click on lend, or you click on borrow. How much do you want to borrow? No, you need to have a little bit more XRP to lock that up in order to get some USDT. But you need to know what is happening behind the scenes. And that is actually an important thing for everybody to know. So that's why I am presenting you the whiteboard session. So, guys, here we go. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another whiteboard session explaining to you borrowing and lending. But first, I need to show you the collaboration. First layer is Flare. That second layer is Morpho. And Morpho is obviously the lending protocol. And then the third layer is Mystic Finance. So if you're going to lend and borrow, you're actually going to the Mystic Finance website. And then you have Morpho, who is actually providing the lending protocol, and Flare is the base layer. That is exactly how it's stacked up. So once you understand this, I will put this down below, by the way. But once you understand this, then we can move on, because this is exactly how they are stacked up and how they are collaborating. So let's start with me explaining about borrowing. Because first, you need to turn your XRP into FXRP. And the reason for this is because you cannot participate in DeFi with your XRPs on the XRP ledger. You need to turn it into FXRP. And once you do that, you can participate in DeFi. So this is on the XRP ledger. This is on the Flare network. So keep that in mind. You want to participate, you need to turn your XRPs into FXRP, which is on the Flare network. And once you have done that, and let's say you have 100 FXRP and you want to borrow, right? So you go on this platform and you want to borrow some amount, because you cannot say I have 100 FXRP that I can lock up, but give me 1000 USDT. You cannot do that. So since this system is over collateralized, which is very safe, you can probably only borrow, I would say as an example, I would say like 60. No, since it's FXRP, I mean, obviously it's worthy of, I would say like around $160. Then yeah, you can probably borrow 100 USDT, around that number, right? Because since the worth in dollars is around 160, you can borrow around 100 USDT. And why are you getting less than the amount that you're locking it up? Because that is for collateral. If something happens with the price of XRP, you also need to be aware of that. Because let's say XRP goes 50% in a drop, then yeah, there is a chance that this can get liquidated. And that is the risk. The risk is that if you're going to borrow 100 USDT and you lock up this amount, right? You lock up this 100 FXRP, you get 100 USDT, you can do whatever you want, right? But this is still locked up. But let's say if the price of XRP drops 50% or maybe even 40%, then yeah, it's very risky, because the worth of this is getting lesser and lesser, and you have a chance for you to get this liquidated. So what can you do not to get liquidated? Let's say if something like this happens, you need to add more. You need to add more FXRP. So then your risk gets lower and lower. But that is only if something major happens with the price of XRP, right? So you can do whatever you want with this. And the interest rates, I don't know, can be different, but it's not that high. And then you pay that back, your FXRP gets unlocked, and during that time, it just still goes with the price. So let's say FXRP goes, like let's say it does a 300% in gains, then yeah, you pay it back, obviously the USDT, then you can take it back, and then obviously your worth of FXRP is way more because it went up 3x. So, which is also a really good thing. You don't even need to sell your XRP at all. And FXRP is just the same as XRP on the XRP ledger. So this is how the borrowing is actually working. So with this system, you can borrow USDT by locking up your FXRP. You can do whatever you want with this. You can maybe make more money with this. You can pay it back. You unlock that amount. And that is how borrowing works. But this risk is here. So also be careful with this. If XRP goes down a significant amount, there is a chance that you get liquidated. But obviously, you need to add more into that deposit. And then obviously the risk gets lower and lower because you are adding more value, since obviously the value of that 100 FXRP is getting lower and lower, right? Because this 100 FXRP is not 150 bucks anymore. It is 75 bucks if it drops 50%. So also keep an eye on that. But let's talk about lending. Because when you're going to lend your FXRP, you are going to make passive income from this. So here you have your FXRP. And you have 100 FXRP. And you want to lend it. Well, it's not directly going to a person who wants to borrow it. This goes into a lending pool. A pool full of people who are also doing the same thing what you are doing, right? And it can be any other asset, but it's a pool with a lot of assets that these borrowers can actually take that from. And the interest that comes here, you are earning that interest. So the people who are borrowing, they need to pay interest. And that interest goes back to the people who are lending, who are willing to put that into a lending pool, a pool full of assets. And everyone who wants to borrow can grab from that. But they need to pay interest, and that interest goes to these people who are also lending. So you're actually your own bank. You're out there giving up your FXRP into a lending pool. And then eventually, if people are going to borrow and they're going to pay a fee, you will earn money with that. So that actually gives you passive income. And the risks of becoming a lender is way lower because you don't need to deal with this, right? So there is way less risk involved into this. So I highly recommend you guys to research this, to double check everything, because this is something amazing. And with this, you don't even need to trust the bank. You can borrow, or you can become a banker, and you can lend your FXRP, but also your Flare if you want to. Or you can also borrow with your Flare if you want to. Or you can do it also with stablecoins. So it's not only for FXRP, it's also for any other asset. So I hope that you guys have learned something from this video, because this is very important for everybody to know. Even the XRP holders, but also for Flare holders, because you can also deposit your Flares and also stablecoins. So this is an important thing for people to realize, that you can participate in finance without uploading your passport, without any other thing that they want to know from you, right? DeFi is permissionless and decentralized. You can participate into this. That is why these centralized entities, these centralized elites, they are against this. They don't want this, because this is literally giving power back to the people. And you are doing that, right? By lending, by borrowing, you create a system, a safe platform for people to use this tool in order to lend and borrow in a way where you don't even need a middleman. You don't need a centralized bank. You don't even need to beg these banks. Please, please let me borrow. Please, no. DeFi is just going to give you that. But you need to have some amount as collateral, obviously, in order to make this whole system works, because obviously they're not going to lend you something and you're gone with that money. And yeah, that's it. You know, like the whole system has been set up like that in order for you to be able to borrow with security, as you also lock up that amount of assets, right? And obviously with XRP, you don't want to sell your XRP, right? So you can lock it up and you can get stable coins. You can do whatever you want with it. And once you pay that back with a little bit of interest, that XRP will be unlocked and you don't even need to sell it. So let's say XRP goes up during that time. You still have your XRPs. That is DeFi, ladies and gentlemen. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this content. Make sure to like, subscribe, And don't forget to put something down below. Let me know what you think about this video, and I'll see you guys next time.